Okay, guys, so here's the demo again, recorded as you guys requested, and so you guys can come back to this to reference it as we go along. So what I've done is I've taken some of your images from Currents, and I have uploaded them into Photoshop. And so what we need to do, as you see here, I've just grabbed a kind of an assortment of those. So you open up, you can either drag them into Photoshop as I did here. I just sort of drug them into the Photoshop and they open up like that. Or basically you can, just go into Photoshop and say File, Open as you go along. So when you do that, I'll go ahead and start and I'll open up a new file. Okay, so we're sharing screen now. So the first thing you'll do is you go File, New, and over here on the side, you'll change this to inches. Okay, and then you may have this already preset to pixels per centimeter. I want this also pixels per inch. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make a width of 22 by a height of 30. Make sure the resolution is 300 pixels an inch. We're going to do RGB. And we're going to do 8-bit. Now, RGB is red, green, blue, CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. K stands for black. Technically, that should be what we're doing for printing, but we're going to go ahead and go with RGB so we get a more vibrant look on screen. So it'll be pretty accurate when it comes to printing that. So create. And you can go ahead and, Command 0 is going to make that full screen. Now at this point, there's a lot of things that we're going to end up playing around with here. We're going to be building and taking our collages, our rubbings, and building collages. Collages are usually images that are put together side by side, juxtaposed, and they create interesting combinations of things when they're placed next to each other. So we're going to take different rubbings and we're going to combine them next to each other. So that we can create kind of a visual interest and a dynamic relationship between certain patterns. So we want to look at things that are maybe one pattern that's more dominant and maybe one pattern that's less dominant, maybe more subtle. We want to look at our patterns and see which ones already are as visually interesting and maybe some that are more subtle and boring. You want to just kind of look through all your patterns and pay attention to that because you want to create this kind of sense of opposites when you're building a collage. You want to have, you wouldn't stack a bunch of very powerful dominant collages next to, or patterns next to each other in a collage because then it'd just be overpowering and you wouldn't have some of that sensibility that you would have otherwise. So that's the first thing you kind of want to do. So I brought all these different images in here from Currents, and these all work really fine. Now, what you'll find is that when you go to File, Image and Image Size, which is also Command Option I, you will see that you have from your phone usually a very large image. So this is about the size of your tabletop, and then only 72 resolution dots per inch. And that's not enough. You need to re-click or unclick, depending on your settings, the resampling. So you see that the lock is not only attached to width and height, but also it's attached to resolution when you open up your image in Photoshop. And you need to make it so that it's 300. And you'll notice that the size dramatically decreased. So now this new size is holding on to the integrity of the 300 resolution while it's moving it downward in size as well. So this new size is just about a little bit smaller than a piece of A4. Click OK. And then at this point, there's a lot of different, I'm going to go ahead and do it to the other one too for the sake of this demo going smoothly. And then and all the images I had in from earlier are already done in that way, okay? So now we have to figure out how we want to go through and start to selecting some of these different patterns, and there's a couple different ways we can do that. So say at first, and we're going to talk about composition later, but right now we're only focusing on Photoshop. So say we want to take this interesting pattern over here on the right, and we want to bring it in to Photoshop. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna unlock it from being the background so that it's just a new layer. It's just a layer now. And then there's a couple ways we could do it. We can use the magic wand tool, okay, right here, and change the tolerance from 50 or 35, anywhere in there. I'm not gonna get into that right now for the sake of timing, but leaving it around 35 to 50 maximum. And then you'll notice that when you click an area that it selects that area. Now if you click another area, that deselects the previous area. So you gotta hold shift and keep selecting what you want out of it. And then in this way, you can you can select and select only certain parts of patterns or rubbings that you have, and use them in different ways. So next time we could come back to the same one and select a different area of it and use it again in a new way. So now that we've selected that part of that pattern, I'm gonna hit Command C, which is just, as you know from working on other documents and things, just copy. And then we're gonna Command V over into the document, okay? Shows up really little, don't stress. Now all we're gonna do is we're gonna hit Command T. Command T is free transform, okay? And you're going to be able to use all the different tools in here in terms of free transform, and all these are kind of everything you're playing with, basically. The Command T enables you to do things like rotate it, and enables you to make it much bigger. Look what happens when you make it much bigger. It gets real pixely. But when you hit return, it breaks it down and makes it 300 resolution. So you can even take things from that and just this element of that now, copy it and paste it, and you could use the move tool and move it down here, right, if you wanted to, right? So there's a lot you can do with each one. Notice that when I put that in here, copied and pasted in here, it pasted it onto the background as a new layer. So layers are like thin pieces of glass. They're all like little things that are floating on top of one another and like sheets. And so as we go up, each independent thing is floating on a new piece of glass layer, okay? Let me go and show you a new way, because for some of you, this might be problematic when you go to select using the magic wand, or you might not want to take the time to just sit and click every single thing that you have. So instead, you can just use the selection tool here called the polygonal lasso tool, and just simply go around it and select what you want. The difference between this and the other way is copy, paste. The difference here is, and I'll show you by enlarging this, is that the white was included with this particular method. But all we have to do to get rid of the white in this is to change the layer style to multiply, okay? What that does is it bleeds out the white, and the black only shows. So you're able to see through there to the other one, okay? And again, we can do things like that, and we can rotate and do all kinds of different stuff in there with that, okay? And so those are the two main ways of moving over your rubbings into your posters. We're really making posters is what we're doing. We're gonna follow some compositional guidelines, but we're all gonna just make these kind of posters. And at the end of the day, you're gonna keep going, and I'll just kind of do a few more things, and I'll talk, because I only want this demo to be about Photoshop and really what you can do in Photoshop, and then later we'll talk more about composition. But say we grabbed another one of these and say we want some kind of formal, maybe like a background area. So say we want to select this one. Okay, copy, paste, Apple T, bring it up. And I wanted this one to be kind of like an overall background over along this left side. Enter. But I don't want it to be so dominant. I don't want everything to be so black. I don't want everything to be so dark as they were in the rubbings. I want to play with that, because I want to play with opacity and overlapping and overlayering. I'm going to go ahead and change this one to multiply. okay? But now I want to get the sense that these things are literally floating in different spaces. I want to get the sense that one's above the other one and one's below, so I can play with things like opacity. And I wanted this last one I just put in to feel like it was more background. So what I'm going to do is well, I'll show you two ways. I'm going to reduce the opacity down of it, okay, to like 35%. Now it already appears as if it's in the background, but technically it's still on top of these other two layers. So I'm going to literally grab that gray area and slide that down in there. So it's literally at the bottom now. It's the bottom layer. And you have these other two layers that are sitting on top of it, okay? Now I'm going to go over here and grab something that's pretty dominant and pretty intense. Let's just do something really crazy here, really dark, because I want to show you guys another reverse technique where you could use your pattern as white. And a couple different ways we could do that. So capital C, capital V. You know, I'm going to bring this in here. I'm just going to disrupt this whole thing and make it really crazy and just, okay, like that. Big brush stroke across there. Multiply, like that. Okay, now we're getting a little busy, but we have some movement happening and there's some things going on different layers of space. I'm going to take this one and I'm going to reduce it back just a tad too. Just a little bit. So now we feel like there's one in front, one behind, one way back. And this one's floating kind of over the top of that thing as a kind of a mid-ground area. Now, see, you can always go back to these layers and you can multiply the layers too without having to go back and grab the pattern again. You can go down and just go like this and drop that in there and it duplicates that layer. You won't see anything change in the document because right now it's sitting right on top of where it was. So you got to go to the Move tool and you'll see that it'll separate out from it, okay? So now you can take that Apple T, rotate it, switch it up, and bring it up here or wherever you wanted. You could also, to get some diversity and get a wide range of options from each rubbing that you end up bringing over, do other things inside Transform. Like you can rotate or flip that horizontal so it's a mirror image of the one below, so it looks a little bit different or something, okay? So there's lots of things you could do, okay? Now, we got this really bold thing happening down here. I'm going to go ahead and copy this layer too by dragging it down to that little plus sign. That's really intense, right? So I'm going to go ahead and drag that. I'm going to Apple T. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go over here and show you the other tools. Transform, maybe distort it. So I'm going to start to really skew that like it's coming at us. Right? I'm going to skew down this side so it's like coming like that. So it's going away from us pretty dramatically. Okay, I'm gonna bring it down. Maybe I'll bring it up. See, and this is like great. This is what's so wonderful about collage. We're not using glue and paper and scissors and knives and stuff. We're able just to select layers and move things around. So you can use these other tools to your advantage. And you can see what they do. I want you really to explore and see what happens. Let's flip this way and bring it in from the right. And let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's bring it down like that. Yeah, there we go. Now, it's getting a little dark, a little heavy. I wanted to bit up a little bit. Now I want to find something really intricate. Oh, that was nice back here, down here. This is good. So I'm going to take this intricate kind of different thing because it kind of contrasts with some of the things that I'm doing up on the other bit. And I'm going to bring it over. Apple C, Apple V, and I'm going to Apple T. By the way, Apple used to have an Apple sign on the command button, but I'm old school. So you don't have it there anymore. And I'm going to bring it there like that. And, don't mess up there. Multiply that layer. Okay. Now it disappeared because there's just so much heavy black. The easiest way to go about doing this is changing it to white instead of inverting selections and things. Is just double click in the gray on the layer itself, and you can go into color overlay and change it to white. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, so we're going to do something a different way. Let's take in the whole selection. So let's go back and on this particular method, you're going to have to do it a different way. Okay, so that's good. Little learning there going on. We'll go back over to it. And this one, you're going to have things that you want to invert to white, you're going to have to manually select, okay? So you're going to have to hold shift and come in and grab a lot of these intricate stuff. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. Let's just grab a bunch of this little small intricate funky stuff that we have going on here. And we won't take too long for this, just again for the sake of time. You've done that, it's cool. Copy Apple C, Apple V, Apple T. You do that, and now you got just the strokes, okay? Pretty cool, right? Now we want to act as if we're adding a subtractive pattern, a subtractive rubbing. So instead of using the invert selection tool, we're going to go ahead and just pretend like we're just going to change the color to white, okay? Like we've put it in and erased it, which is cool because now you start to get patterns that are coming back in the negative, okay? And you can really play with how they do that. So you can disrupt the whole composition. You can bring it up into there, right? Now we're starting to get really cool stuff happening because if you only work additively, you're going to get messy and dark and really fast. So you're going to have to think about ways that you can start to come and grab some other patterns, right? Like this is a nice one. Apple C, Apple V, that, Apple T. And then you're going to find cool ways to break up some of that negative or that positive space, which we're seeing as black, and turning it white, okay? See that? And I think that collage is a process of adding, subtracting, adding, subtracting. Pay attention to the positive and the negative space as like a relationship, right? So like you need both. Sometimes students get too heavy-handed with adding. So now, and we'll talk more about composition as we go, but now we're starting to see a flow, we're starting to see angles, we're starting to see layers of space, we're starting to, get visual interest, we're starting to get a spatial illusion of depth and happening inside here that is a mixture of things happening. Now, what's amazing by all of this is that we can add and we can deactivate, and unsee layers if we want and play around with whatever we want, or we can copy another one of these layers, and like I mentioned earlier, and start to play around with how that's reduced. That layer doesn't have to stay that size. We can go ahead and shrink it if we want. We can rotate it and bring it over here if we decide. We want some more of that happening over there, and grab other stuff. So it's push, pull, positive, negative, until you find something really cool. Now, there's going to be 3 ways to save this. At the end of the day, you have to save it so that you can retain your layers, because the layers themselves are going to give you your GIF that I'm going to explain to you in a little bit. We're going to make a GIF, which is a moving image, and these layers are going to come into a timeline down below, and we're going to loop that timeline and time it in seconds and frames, and you're going to have a visual happening so you can see sort of like the layers all flashing and stuff, okay? Plus, you're going to be printing out this as a poster as well. So you need to have a number of different files ready. So if we just go Command-Shift-S or File, Save As, then what you're going to have here is a PSD file, a Photoshop document. That's what we want. We want that, okay? So you could say, Frottage 1 or whatever. You need to save this working file because you need those layers. It makes a very large file, and you don't have to keep it forever to take up room on your computer, but you need it for now, and later you can delete it. So you're going to save that as a Photoshop working document. You might want to even choose to do that often as you're working. If you're getting really into one and taking a long time, save that. Because now once you've done that, all you got to do is Command save, You just got to hit, oh, I might have lost it. That's good because I saved it. So you can hit Command S, Command S, Command S, and it automatically just keeps saving that without having to go back into there, okay? It saves it in the same place every time. And the next file you need you need to flatten the image, okay? Because you're going to use this to print your poster. So you're going to go to Layer, Flatten Image, and now you have a flat image. And now when you go to File, Save As, you'll notice that you can select JPEG as an option, okay? That JPEG is going to be what we print. All right, so you're going to save that. Maximum 12. And then for Google Currents, you're going to save a new file. And that's when you're going to go to File, Image, Size. And you're going to go to Image, Size, or Command Option I. And you're going to change the resolution to 72. Okay? And one thing to keep in mind here is that now we can go ahead, let's go back, we can go ahead and unselect the resampling because I want to keep that size 22 by 30, but I only want it to be 72 dots per inch, which is more computer resolution. You'll notice that it goes really small, but if you hit Command 0, it keeps its integrity, okay? All right? It's this file size, this smaller one, 22 by 30, 72 DPI, that you'll be able to easily just pop onto Currents, and that's the only thing you're using it for, is to easily pop it onto Currents. Okay? Once you've saved all those, you know you can go Command Z, you're right back to the original document, but you've got them all saved in the file folder anyway, so it doesn't matter. Okay? So that's everything you do with Photoshop. You can play around with all of these tools inside Free Transform. There are obviously a lot of other things that you could do. You could get into the noise and distortions and displace and swirl and wave and pixelate and render and sharpen and clouds and fancy rainbows, glitter, and all the stuff. But I don't want you doing that with this project. Okay? I just want you playing with transform, layers, layer opacities, rotations, color, layer styles in terms of, the color overlays and stuff. And that's pretty much all I want you to do. There is some other stuff you could play with in here if you'd like, but you're keeping everything black and white, okay? So like this one, like right there, what was that? Yeah, no, over here. There's another kind of cool tool, and that's when you, where is it? You can do drop shadows. So then they start to lift off the page. Okay, a little bit. You can turn that a little bit darker. You can change the size so it kind of. But now that is almost like a paint spill that's lifted off. Okay, and you can change the distance of how far it is, so you can almost look like you're looking underneath it. Right? You can play with a little bit of that stuff as well, but keep it formal and keep it mature. Don't start doing like all the crazy. Don't lose the. Don't lose the character and this, the essence of your rubbings. Keep it true to what you're doing here. Okay, does that help? I hope it does. Good luck, everybody, and I wish you all the best.